Welcome everyone to another episode of Tips from My Garage. My name is Lisiate Tonga. I'm the father of two beautiful boys, husband to a beautiful wife. I'm the owner of online consulting business Upgrade Version U.0 and author of ebook Q&A Between Two Addicts. And today I want to talk to you all about habits and how they decide your direction. If you're not careful with the habits that you choose, then they're going to end up eventually paving the path for you and your future. People don't ruin their lives overnight, they drift there through habits. People don't start out being addicted to one vice or another. They have been accumulations of small decisions over a period of time before they get to a point where the habit or the vice becomes problematic. If you're not careful about the habits that you're choosing intentionally, then you run the risk of your habits running your life for you. Every day you have a particular set of habits that you may or may not be aware of, that operate subconsciously and that enact a certain series of actions that you perform without even knowing them. And they can be just as simple as when you wake up, you get out of bed, you brush your teeth, you take a shower. Those things can happen without any thought to it. And that is because it is something that you have done over a period of time, over a long period of time, repetitively, until it has just been ingrained uh, on your brain so that it just becomes second nature. Your brain is trying to make things as efficient as possible for you, and that also includes reserving energy for things that are going to require the most energy for your day. If you don't know this by now, your habits are already deciding for you who you are going to become. And I know that might sound a little bit strange, that your habits are choosing for you, are carving the path for you and who you're going to become, but that is the truth. You are the sum of the results of your repeated behaviors. But the best way to be able to see this for yourself is to take an inventory of the habits that you do have. And I talk about this a lot in my program, and how um, and what you should do. And my clients, I tell them, hey, look, what you've got to do is follow yourself around, you know, on a day by day basis, from when you wake up in the morning to when you wake up at night, just recording all the things that you do. And when you do something like that, what you can gain from it is a lot more self-awareness about who you are and what you're doing. And you can see things on a much granular level. People know that they have habits, and they know that their habits are bad for them, but they don't really want to see their habits on a granular level, because they don't really want to get into the details of how they how they're doing things, and how it's not good for them. And because it may not feel good, taking a really good look at yourself in the mirror and seeing things for what they really are can make you feel really bad about yourself, and get you to a point where you might just start beating up on yourself or self-loathing. And when you get into a space like that, things can go downhill, and nobody wants to really do that. So no one really takes the time to sit down with themselves and do this. It is something that you can do quite simply if you just woke up and had a note and a notebook and a pen. You start your day out with, and just kind of follow yourself around without any judgment. With just pure curiosity about how you do things. And when you can do that, and when you can record this, so you can have it down on paper in black and white, so you can see it for what it is. This is such a huge step that could help you to that could be the one thing that could help you to redirect your life into a better way, into a bit onto a better path, because you can see things more clearly. You can self correct, because you know where you fell down. You know what time it was. You know how you were feeling. You know what it is that you did. At that moment where something just kind of clicked in your head, and then you got triggered, and then you went in another direction. And when you can see things like that clearly, when you can see the behaviors that you have clearly, you can really make some profound changes to your behaviors, because of that clarity. But people don't like doing this, because facing your habits means facing responsibility. It means you have to take responsibility. You have to take accountability for your actions. And nobody wants to point the finger at themselves, um as the reason for why their life is the way that it is, or why they are not where they should be. People want to avoid that, because they don't want to feel bad. When people feel bad about themselves, they tend to turn to their vices. They tend to go to the place where they know they can get the comfort and the validation as quickly as possible, rather than sitting with the discomfort long enough to be able to understand, what the behavior really has been, what the behavior has meant to them, and their well-being, and their current situation. They don't want to do that. And it's really interesting and sad at the same time that being comfortable feels much safer. Turning a blind eye to their reality feels much safer, even if it's costing you everything. And that sounds weird, just saying that out loud, but it is the truth. We know that we're doing the wrong thing, and yet we still do it. And so why do we do that? Why do we keep avoiding ourselves? The other thing is that we are caught in an environment trap, where being surrounded by people that have the same habits, it normalizes the dysfunction. So if you're surrounded by people that are doing the same thing that you are, then you're just going to be the next person doing it. Nobody wants to be around people that are not like them. People prefer to be around people that are like them. If you've got people that have, mediocre standards and values, and they get surrounded by people who have higher standards and higher values, they're going to feel uncomfortable. They're not going to want to be around them, because they're not going to feel um, like they're going to be validated. They're not going to feel like they are adequate to be in such a group, and so they're going to just look for the people that they're going to accept them for who they are, rather than step up to the plate and say, hey, look, I want to be, I want to have higher values, and I want to have higher standards. They feel more comfortable with just being around people who are going to be, who are going to have the same type of ambition that they do. If the habits you have are a concern of yours, then this is what I would say, and this is the order that I would suggest that you do things in. I would say you need to follow yourself around for a whole week, just recording all the habits that you have, all the behaviors that you have, and all the routines you have. It's so important as well that when you do this, that you're doing it without judgment, that you're doing it purely out of curiosity. So you're not beating yourself up, you're not, you don't become self-loathing, and to a point where you shut yourself off and start focusing more on how bad of a person you are, and less on the behaviors, and the routines and the habits that you have. You've got to kind of sit in that discomfort and just say to yourself, hey, that is really interesting that I'm doing that. You know, I wonder why I do that. That is, that is something that I do, and it is interesting. And that's how you do something without being judgmental of yourself. You're just doing things out of curiosity so you can see it for what it is. So that's what I would do first. I would look at the habit clearly. I would observe everything around that habit. How you know the give it more context so that you can see what happened prior to the habit. Like, how were you feeling? What time of the day was it? What were you doing? Because all those things matter. Because what you want to do is you want to be able to identify that particular set of circumstances when these habits get triggered, so that you can prevent them. Because that's really what the next step is going to be after you have this awareness of your habits, is you want to go back in there and just say, okay, we now know, I now know when this happens, how it happens, and everything surrounding the habit. And then now we can look at changing the habit, or replacing the habit with something that is going to be more positive and beneficial to you. So identify what your routines, behaviors, and habits are. Identify the context, the full context around them. Make sure you're doing things out of curiosity and without judgment, so you can see everything about the routine and the behavior and the habit. And then the next thing that I would do then is to start creating new habits, start creating replacement habits, start creating replacement habits that are going to take over the slots or the spots where the current habits reside, because that's how you're going to change your behavior. You're not going to be able to change the fact that you get triggered. You can't stop a trigger from happening. You can change out the next part of the behavior pattern, or the next part of the habit, which is the automatic action plan. You can switch that out to something that is going to be better for you, a habit that you're going to have, that you're going to create, that's going to be beneficial for you, that at the back end of that automatic action plan, you're going to feel better about yourself. You're going to build confidence. You're going to have proof that you can do things differently. And you're going to realize that there is a big difference between the reward that you get from your negative habits versus the rewards that you get for your positive habits. And then I would create habits under these different categories. I would say you would need physical habits, which are going to include health and diet and fitness and all of that stuff. And then I would create habits around personal development. And that's going to include study, it's going to include reading, it's going to include anything, it's going to include schooling, it's going to include anything that you can do that is going to improve, that's going to improve your mentality, it's going to improve your cognitive functioning, it's going to improve your learning ability, your memory, your ability to retain knowledge, your ability to be able to think clearly. Those are things those are habits that you also need to build, and then you'll also need to build habits around your spirituality, and so that's going to include your daily prayer. That's going to include daily scripture study. It's going to include things like going to church, and doing community service and getting out of yourself and thinking of others and serving others. And when you're developing habits in these three areas, your physical, your mental, and your spiritual, those are habits that are going to improve all the important aspects of who you are, the person that you are, the human being that you are. We all have a body and we all have a spirit, and those all need to be nurtured and 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 fed, and we need to have good habits in order for us to be able to do that mentally, physically, spiritually. We need to be on point in all those three key areas, and when you can line those three areas up in your life, then you can create the best version of yourself. Then you can um, optimize yourself so that you can make the most of the opportunities that will present themselves to you, or create opportunities as a result of the transformation that you made. That's really what changing from the inside out is all about. This has really nothing to do with anyone else in your circle or the places that you go. This has everything to do with you. If you can if you can get rid of the habits that you have that are not serving you, and if you can adopt new habits that will serve you, and if you can be consistent with those habits that you're learning, then you're not only going to be changing yourself from the inside, but you will begin to start changing things on the outside, because the things on the outside that don't serve you, they will have no place for you, and you'll realize that. You'll come to that realization to yourself that, hey, this is contradictory to the direction that I'm heading, or to the things that I'm learning, or to the goals and the values that I want to have, and the standard that I want to have. Anyway, I hope this was helpful, and I'll talk to you next time.